The Unlit House. Episode 7. The Saint. Narrated by Atlas. The following is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously to tell a story. Nothing in this series represents real individuals. Listener discretion is advised. 6 doors in, here's what you missed. There's a man named Atlas, suit by day, notebook by night. 3 affirmations at the bottom of every page that he does not believe yet. I am enough. I forgive myself. All I need is within me now. Thank you. The Visit, December 2019. A mother handed her son the truth about his father and the reason the lights in that house never go off. The code, my brother Horace, the rotation, one rule broken and repaired. And the confession underneath it. Every rule I ever made, I made with a man. And last week, New Year's Eve, 7 years of a ceremony, a phone that did nothing at midnight and did something worse at 1. A red robe. A call she placed to tell me she couldn't hear me. 40 seconds. I told you a song had already given me the verdict 2 years earlier, on the other side of the world, at a sandwich counter, and I'd spent those 2 years appealing a decision that had already been signed. She thought she was better now. So did I. One of us was lying. Tonight you find out I was still lying in August. The cold open. August, not January. My mother thanks her. I never knew why. Not thank you for the ride, not the thing you say when somebody does your kid a favor. I mean my mother, a woman who does not hand out gratitude like church programs, has thanked this woman to her face, more times than I can account for. Across years I've stopped being able to count. She thanked her after my graduation. She thanked her when she picked me up from the airport. She thanked her when she drove me from my mother's house to the airport. And she thanked her the last time I moved home and then left again. Every time I stood there like a man watching 2 people speak a language he grew up around and never learned. I've spent a long time wondering what my mother knows about that woman that I don't. What she sees. What she understands about the 2 of us that my eyes can't reach, my mind can't reason out, and my heart has never once been able to name. I don't take it for granted. I'm thankful for it. I just don't understand it. Or I didn't, until I sat down to make this episode. There's a kind of book they sell with a date on every page, 365 of them. One for every day of the year, and the whole design of the thing assumes you're going to start it on January 1st, like a decent person, with a clean calendar and a fresh set of intentions. I started mine in August. Page 200 and something, somewhere in the back half. The spine still stiff, the front third untouched and staying that way because I wasn't going back to catch up. I didn't have the runway. I had that night. And I want to be careful here because people hear a man opened a Bible and they picture a change. Light through a window, a hand on a shoulder, some music underneath it. There wasn't any of that. There was a man in a room with a book he didn't buy for himself, opening it to the wrong month, because somebody he'd been avoiding for a long time had finally gotten him on the phone and told him to. Here's what I've learned since. There is no right time to speak to God. There is a wrong time, and the wrong time is the one you spend waiting to find the right one. The wrong time is January, if January is the excuse. The wrong time is Sunday, if Sunday is the excuse. The wrong time is when I get myself together first, which is the biggest excuse there is because it puts the cleanup before the water. The wrong time is never starting. August was fine. August was more than fine because of what August already had in it. Because in August of 2020, I was reading scripture at night and driving across state lines during the day to sleep with women whose last names I had not asked for. Both. Same month. Same man, same hands. And the woman who put that book in my hands didn't know the half of it. She knew enough. 4 words came across my screen that month. Not a number, not an area code I'd have to think about. A name I hadn't seen in a long time, attached to 4 words that I've not been able to put down since. Atlas! I found you. Found. Not found your number, not heard you were down south. Found you. Like I'd been reported missing. Like somebody filed the paperwork a long time back and just never closed the case. This is episode 7. This is The Saint. Act 1. 2 men, 1 body. You have to understand what people saw. At work, I was the quiet one, not shy, quiet. There's a difference, and everybody who's ever been the quiet one knows it. Shy is when you can't. Quiet is when you don't. I didn't ruffle feathers. I didn't argue. I didn't take up space I hadn't been offered. If you'd asked 10 people I saw every single day to describe me, you would have gotten 10 versions of the same sentence. He's good people. He's chill. He doesn't say much. Innocent. That's the word that used to come back to me. He seems innocent. I'd nod at that. Had let it sit there. Because they were describing the front of the house, porch light on, grass cut, mail brought in. Nobody at that job ever saw the back. Horace saw the back. You met him last week, my brother. The one who broke the code and repaired it and became the only man who ever named mine. He lived close enough to see the door, and the door is where the truth is. He watched them come. Not one, not a story. A rotation. Women I met on an app, women I drove to, women who drove to me, women who came back to my room and left before the sun made it awkward. Different names, different faces, a schedule I kept in my head like a route. And one night Horace looked at me, and he wasn't mad, he wasn't judging. He was genuinely a little bit impressed, which is its own kind of horrible, and he said, "Damn, bro, you just got it like that?" And I gave him the truest sentence I said out loud that entire year. I'm bored. I'm just getting pussy to fill the void. I didn't say it dramatic. I said it like a man telling you what he does for a living. And that's the thing about a void. It doesn't ask for quality. It doesn't ask for anybody's last name. A void is a hole in the floor, and everything you drop in it makes the same sound, which is no sound, which is why you keep dropping things in. I was driving hours for that sound, across county lines, across state lines, getting in the car after work with a full tank and a destination and telling myself it was spontaneity when it was inventory. And I want to say the ugly part plain, because this show doesn't work if I clean it. I wasn't doing it because I wanted them. I was doing it to see if I could. Every yes was a receipt, proof that a woman I hadn't met last month would say yes to a man another woman had already returned. I was running an audit on my own worth, and I was running it through people, and I was calling it a good time. Carl knew a version of it. Carl caught pieces. Carl always caught pieces. That's just how he was built. And he'd give me that look and let it go, because Carl's whole gift was knowing which door to knock on and which one to walk past. But the man at work was real too. That's what nobody tells you. I wasn't performing innocence. That quiet man was in there. He answered emails. He was polite. He held the door. 2 men, 1 body, 1 set of car keys. And the second man had the keys more often. Act 2, Part 1, The Driveway. So how does a woman I've known since college get that man on the phone in August of 2020? She had to go find him. But before I tell you how she found me, I have to tell you how she got me the first time. Middle of God's great earth, some town you've never heard of and never will. She's sitting on the hood of an SUV with her legs crossed at the ankle like she's got nowhere to be, and I'm standing there with my hands in my pockets doing the thing I did back then, running the play, working the angle, being charming at somebody. And she looks at me and says, "Your spirit is bad." Not mean, not cruel. The way a nurse tells you what the X-ray says. That's the first thing she ever said to me. And she was right, and I knew she was right, and I stayed anyway. Here's who she was on that campus. Single mother, bringing her kids to class because that was the arrangement she'd made with her own life, and she wasn't going to apologize for it. Didn't run with students, didn't need to. Everybody there was building a personality, and she'd already been issued one by circumstance. Her father cheated on her mother, so she'd been raised inside the blueprint. She'd watched a man run a play on a woman before she was old enough to spell it, which is how she made me in about 9 seconds. I was seeing a girl named Annette then, and by seeing, I mean handling. And she became Annette's friend, which meant she got a front row seat to a magic show where she already knew where the rabbit was. She told Annette to leave me, more than once. She'd say it in front of me, she'd say it to me. There was no version of that woman that talked behind your back, because talking behind somebody's back requires caring what they think of you, and she did not. Annette thought she was trying to take me. It was the exact opposite. She was trying to hand Annette the exit. That's a whole other book, and I'm not opening it tonight. Different city, different me. You'll get it when you get it. Now here's the part nobody expects. The people she ran with, the good ones, the church ones, the ones who'd call her sister. She'd ask them for a ride and get a schedule conflict. She'd ask for a pickup and get an excuse. The saint had no drivers, and pride never got in that woman's way. Only execution. She'd ask, get the no, and solve it. That's it. No sulking, no ledger, no after everything I've done for you people. So I started saying yes. That's the whole origin. Not some deep conversation, not a moment. Logistics. She needed to be somewhere, and I was somebody who showed up. And then there was a night. I'm not going to tell you what that night was. I'll tell you this much. Something happened that she did not plan, in a part of her life she keeps very carefully, and she needed somebody, and she called the people who should have come. Nobody answered. So she called me. I drove. I found her. I got her home. I made sure she was all right. And I have never told a single soul what that night was, including tonight. I want to be clear about why, because it isn't because I'm a good man. I want that on the record. This show is not a redemption arc, and I'm not slipping one in the side door. I was not a good man in that season. I kept it because I understood what her name was worth to her. She had one thing that couldn't be replaced, and it wasn't money, and it wasn't the degree. It was the fact that when people said her name out loud, nothing came after it. Everybody makes mistakes, nobody's perfect, but not everybody has somebody in the car at 2 a.m. who understands that a reputation is load-bearing. She didn't give me a pass after that. Let me be clear about that, too. She has never given me a pass in all these layers of years, but she saw it. Reliable. And in her corner. Act 2, Part 2, The Apartment. When I graduated, and I had nowhere to go. Everybody thinks broke means no money. Broke means no doors. And every door I could have knocked on, I'd already kicked in. Every woman who might have put me up, I'd cheated on her, or slept with her and disappeared, or dated her and made her the punchline of a story I told somebody else. That's the bill. Nobody tells you the bill comes due in housing. I didn't want to go home, not until I was ready or the money ran out, whichever came first. She gave me her apartment. Not the couch, the apartment. Keys, everything paid. Don't worry about the bills. Don't worry about the light. She had somewhere else to be, and she'd rather it be me in there than empty. I never went in her room, not once. Slept on the futon and made that futon a palace. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I spent that summer in prayer. I watched an unreasonable amount of a cartoon about a man who sells propane and propane accessories. I ate. I traveled. I finally got around to some women I'd been circling for a long time, and I ran that roster deep enough to platoon. But no parties, no crowds, no damage to her place, her name, or her neighbor's opinion of her. She told me about that. And that's the thing I want you to sit with. She handed the keys to the worst version of me, and I still didn't break the one rule she set. Not because I'd grown, because she'd asked. When the money ran out, I went home. And guess who was waiting? We picked up like there'd been no gap. She drove me all over town, fed me, corrected me. Showed me, not told me, showed me how a woman is supposed to be treated, by treating me better than I had ever treated anybody. I kept the old habits for a while. They don't leave on a schedule, but they thinned out. That's who she was to me before any of this. Act 2, Part 3, The Choice. Now, August of 2020. I was gone. And I've been saying I ghosted everybody for years, like it was weather, like it just happened to me. It didn't. Here's the truth, and I've had to sit with it to say it out loud. I didn't lose her. I chose against her. You already know who I chose. You heard about her for 3 episodes. The one I don't name. She didn't like my friends, never did, and she especially could not understand why a grown man had so many female friends. You watched that play out in this house already. You watched what happened between her and the woman I called Wonder. 2 people who could not be in the same life. And I made a decision. I made the same decision every time. Her. Every time. And when you choose one person over everybody, you don't announce it. You don't send a letter. Nobody gets a call saying, "Hey, I'm putting you down for a while." You just get slower. You answer on Wednesday instead of Tuesday, then the next Wednesday. Then you don't. And the person on the other end doesn't get a goodbye. They get a fade. Now here's the part that indicts me completely. It reversed. Every time. Because the second there was a rift, the second things went sideways with her, the second there was a shift in the air, my friends came right back in the chat. Like a light on a sensor. Trouble at home, and suddenly I'm reaching for the people I put down. That's not friendship. That's utilities. You turn them on when you need heat. And they let me. That's the part that gets me. They let me do that for years. So when I say she couldn't find me in 2020, understand what she was actually walking back into. 7 months earlier, the woman I'd chosen over her had ended it in 40 seconds on New Year's Day. The choice was over, and the people I'd traded for it were still out there, uncalled. She just happened to be the one who came looking anyway. Now the mechanics. Because this is the part that made it take years. The socials were the string. That was the thread between her and me. That's where we talked. That's how you keep somebody in your life when they're 800 miles away. I stopped using them. I didn't block anybody, didn't delete anything, didn't post one of those taking some time for myself notes that people put up when they want to be found. I just stopped going. Which means the address stayed up. My name was still on the mailbox. Anybody who came looking would find a house with the lights on. Picture, old posts, everything exactly where I left it. And nobody home. That's the whole show in one sentence, and I lived it before I ever named it. Then I enlisted. And when I enlisted, I came back. Carefully. Not all the way. A different app, a smaller door, the kind where the message disappears after you read it, which was about right for who I was. Semi in hiding, cracked window, chain still on. And there was exactly one man who knew about that window. Act 2, Part 4, The Doorman. There was exactly one woman I never faded on, and you'll meet her in 3 weeks. The smartest woman I know. Held my money, held my confidence, watched me tear my own life down twice. Never once said I told you so. Different episode, different door. That one's coming. And there was one man. His name is Zach. Now I need a minute on Zach because Zach is going to matter in a book you haven't opened yet. Cold school up north, deep in the pit of the snow, small enough that everybody knew everybody, and somehow that made it bigger. Because when you're somebody at a school that size, you're somebody to every single person you pass. We were roommates, and we were crowned kings of that campus. Both of us, same year. A title nobody had held before us, and nobody's held since. I want you to understand what that felt like, because I've never been able to explain it to anybody who wasn't there. Small school, no cameras, no stadium, and it still felt like a Saturday night under the lights at a program 10 times the size. We'd walk into that dining hall, and the room would turn, like the scene in the movie where the music comes up and everybody looks. And every single day, everybody was at our table. Not because we were exclusive, because we weren't. That was the code, and we were living it before either of us had words for it. I'd hear the words years later from another man in another city, and I'd feel the floor move, because it was already how we ate. If I eat, we all eat. He never played a down of ball in his life, and he was still the most popular man in that snow. He dated women other men wrote songs about. He knew the bouncer, the barber, the councilman, and your cousin. He still does. He does real things for that city now, the kind that don't come with a check. He's the piece on the board that moves diagonal, crosses the whole thing in one motion, corner to corner, right through the middle of everybody else's game. And where he lands depends completely on which square he started on. So you never see him coming because you were watching the wrong color. And here's what he is under all of it. He's safe. He'll drink with you and never get sloppy. He'll match whatever energy walks in the door, and he knows exactly when to shut it down. He's not smooth. Smooth is a performance, and people can smell a performance. He's genuine, and that's the thing you can't fake. And that's why he pulls people in like a porch light in July. He raises no red flags, not one, not to anybody, not to anybody's woman. Which brings me to the irony I've only just now sat down and looked at. The woman I don't name, the one I chose over all of them. She liked Zach. She asked about him. She kept up with him. He was the one friend of mine who was allowed to stay in the picture, because he was the one who never made her nervous. And the friend who did make her nervous, the woman this whole episode is about, faded out. So my ex kept the one man in my life who would eventually hand my best friend the key back. She built the door she was trying to close. Zach's on everything. Every platform, every app, every method of contact a human being has invented. He talks to people. It's not networking, he's just genuinely interested in your life. And after I enlisted, he was the man I opened that cracked window for. He had the new number, and he guarded it. He gave it out to people in the circle and nobody else. I never once told him, don't give out my information. I never had to, and that's the point. He just knew who was family and who wasn't. So when she couldn't find me, she went to him. They were friendly, not close. The kind of two people who'd been in the same rooms 100 times without ever being in the same conversation. But he knew exactly who she was to me. He'd watched us since that campus. She asked where I was, and he didn't screen her, didn't stall her, didn't call me first to ask if it was cool, didn't send a heads-up text, didn't do the thing everybody does when they're covering themselves. He just gave it to her. Because a man with a beat on everybody looked at who was asking and made the call in about a second. I've been grateful for that decision ever since. By the way, he calls me Jim. I call him Fred. Freshman year, still today. 20-some years of two grown men using names that aren't theirs and never once explaining it to anybody. Don't worry about it. You'll understand later. She went through levels. People she doesn't talk to. People she'd have no reason to contact on any other day of her life. Working our way inward, 1 degree at a time, toward a man who had specifically arranged for himself to be unreachable. That's not friendship. That's search and rescue. And then one night my phone lit up, and it wasn't a number, it was her name. And my thumb was already moving before I'd made any decision about it. Because here's what I've never admitted out loud until right now. I wasn't looking for her. I was looking for her the way you look for your keys in a house you've already moved out of. Not hunting, just reaching in the dark for the place they used to be. She found me. Atlas! I found you. And then she didn't ask where I'd been. She opened like nothing had happened, like we'd hung up an hour ago, which is its own kind of grace. And I didn't recognize it as grace at the time. I just recognized that I was talking, and that I hadn't talked to anybody in a long time. Now, some housekeeping, because I want you to understand what she'd just walked back into. I have a top 9. That's not a joke, and it's not a ranking on a wall. It's just true. There are 9 people, and everybody else is everybody else. 3 of them have never left. Not once, not for a season, not even when I was the one who left. Friends come in tiers. That's not cold, that's just architecture. Not every friend has the same access, and access isn't about how long you've known somebody. I've got people I've known most of my adult life who get the weather report. I've got people I've known 5 years who get the truth. Access is about what you've done with the room you were already given. And one more, because he's about to matter, and he'll matter a lot more later. There's a man named Christian. Since 2003, we played ball together, ran track together, worked together, stood up in each other's weddings. Built like a superhero, and he's never once used it on anybody. He came from a family that had it, and he never made anybody feel it. He moved me in when I had nowhere, fed me when I couldn't, got me my first real job. He likes to say he kept me out of trouble. That's not quite it. He was just the one who'd say the real thing to my face in a normal voice, and then let me go do the dumb thing anyway, and then be there after. Everybody who meets him wants to be him. Nobody can. He's got a discipline that isn't willpower, it's just architecture. He built it so long ago that it doesn't cost him anything anymore. Everybody calls him Bruce. Big enough to break the room, and he never has, not once. I ghosted the world in that stretch. I didn't fully ghost Christian, and it wasn't because I was better with him. It's because it wasn't possible. He always knew how to reach me, and he never made a thing of it. Every secret I ever kept from that man, he found out later anyway. Never from me, never dramatically. He'd just know, and he'd bring it up 6 months later like the weather. He's got a tattoo on his shoulders. I'm not telling you what it says tonight. I copied it. Not the image, the idea. I've got a word on my wrist because of what's on that man's shoulders. And the day I tell you what it says, you're going to have to go back and listen to this whole show again. That's not for tonight. And notice the shape of it while we're here. Christian never had to search for me because I never fully disappeared on him. She had to run levels through people she doesn't talk to get to the exact same man. 2 best friends, 2 different doors, same house. Tonight is hers. Act 3. What else, LOL? She checked in like a job, every week, sometimes twice. And her questions were never, "How are you?" because "How are you?" is a door with a lock on it, and everybody knows the combination is good. Her questions were specific. Her questions had teeth in them and a smile on top, which is the most dangerous combination there is. So one night, she's got me on the phone, and she's asking about a woman I'd been seeing. And she goes, "Did you take her to dinner?" "Yeah." "Good. What else?" "Nothing." "Atlas." I told you her questions had teeth. "What else, lol?" And I said it like it was nothing, because to me it was nothing. It was a Tuesday. AirPods. Silence on the line. Not the offended kind. The kind where somebody's deciding how much of it to say. And then she said the thing I have been carrying ever since. "Atlas. Stop. You cannot keep giving yourself to anyone who isn't deserving. Once they get that out of you, what else do they need you for? They can just act however they want to act." Let me take that apart, because I didn't hear it right the first time. I thought she was talking about money. She wasn't talking about money. She never once talked about money. What she was saying is, you are handing people the top of your generosity on day 1, and then spending the rest of the relationship confused about why they don't reach for anything else. Because that's what I did, every time, Dinner, gift, gift, access, keys, code. Front-loaded, all of it, in the first 3 weeks. Not because I'm sweet, because I was scared, because somewhere in me was a man who did not believe he'd survive an evaluation, so he paid the bill up front and hoped the check would cover the audit. And here's what happens when you do that. You never find out what somebody would have done for you, because you never left a space for them to do it in. You can't measure a person you've already paid. She wasn't worried about my wallet. She was worried about my head. She knew I was rebuilding. She knew Christian was holding my savings and had my accounts locked down like a vault. She knew there were people around me managing what I could not manage myself, and she wasn't worried about the balance. She was worried that I was going to keep spending myself down to nothing and calling it romance. She'd been watching me do it since the driveway. And she said one more thing on that call, and this is the one that actually put a hand on the wheel. Read the Bible. Not a suggestion, not you should think about. An assignment from a woman who has never in her life told me what to do, but who will absolutely tell me what to read. There's a difference, and it took me years to see it. She didn't say stop sleeping with those women. She never said that, not once. Not that night, not any night. She said, get right. Because she knew if she went after the behavior, I'd defend the behavior. Everybody does. But if she could get me to slow down enough to hear my own voice in a quiet room, I'd handle the behavior myself. Eventually. Act 4. Just Row. I bought the book. I started it in August. You know that part. What you don't know is that she checked every week, straight through the fall, straight through football season, when I had every excuse in the world and a whole Sunday's worth of alibi. Did you read? Not are you reading. Did you read? Past tense. Yes or no. No room in the question to negotiate with. That's accountability. And I want to be honest with you about how rare that actually is, because most people will not do it. Most people will ask you once, accept the first answer you give, and let you go. Because holding somebody accountable means being willing to be disliked for a minute, and almost nobody's willing. She was willing, and I never once resented it. Now, here's the part I've thought about for years, and it's the thing I most want you to take out of this episode. It was not her job to fix me. It wasn't her job to tell me what to do, and she never did. It was her role to lead me. And there's a difference between those two that I can only explain one way, and it's a way she and Christian and I have actually talked about more than once. She rows. She doesn't steer. She lets God steer. And because she's not fighting the wheel, she can put everything she's got into the oars. She doesn't rush. She doesn't force. She doesn't make a plan for you and then get bitter when you don't follow it. She just moves, steady, in whatever direction the current's actually going. And when she picks up somebody like me, some fool half drowned, no direction, water coming in, she says, just row. I'll steer. That's it. That's the whole thing. She's not asking me to know where we're going. She knows I don't. She's asking me to pull, to do the one dumb, honest thing that's in front of me, which was open a book at night. And she'll handle the direction because she's got somebody handling hers. And I rowed. Badly, inconsistently. But I rowed. The line. Now I have to tell you about her, and I have to do it carefully because I know what you're already thinking. Everybody thinks it. Every single person who has ever seen us in the same room has assumed we've slept together. Family, friends, women I've dated, men she's turned down. It's the first assumption, and it's always the first assumption. And I've stopped correcting people because correcting people just makes them more sure. So let me lay out what it actually looks like from the outside. And you can judge for yourself why people assume. She dresses me, literally. My clothes, my fits, what works, what doesn't, what I'm not wearing out of the house. She feeds me, she picks me up, she hangs out with my mother, independently, without me. They go to church together. I have spent the night at her place. And in all these layers of years, she has never made a move on me. And I have never made one on her. Not a moment. Not a night that got weird. Not a what if we. Nothing. Ever. And I want to be clear, because I know how I sound 6 episodes into a show about my own body count. That's not restraint on my part. I'm not the hero of this paragraph. I've had 0 self-control in almost every other room of this house. That door just was never a door. She comes from money, and even if she didn't, she is a self-made woman, and she lends it. She has helped people. She has floated people. That's who she is. She has never lent me a dime, not $1, not when I was broke, not when I was rebuilding, not when Christian had my savings locked down and I was living on what was left. And that was on purpose. Some of it was me. I needed to prove I could stand up on my own, and if she'd bailed me out, I'd have known forever that I didn't do it. But some of it was her, because she understood something about me that took me years to catch. Money would have made me a project, and she didn't want me as a project. She wanted me as a man, and men don't get built by being carried. So she never gave me money. She gave me keys. Think about the difference. Money is a number that leaves. Keys are a door that stays open. She never once handed me cash. She handed me a place to sleep, a ride to where I needed to be, a plate, a corner, a name I could stand behind. And when I had nothing, she covered where we went and what we did, not as charity, just as we're going, come on. Never made it a thing, never brought it up later, never held it. And then the pendulum swung. I got on my feet, and I got to be the one reaching for the check, and I got to take her out, and she let me. Which is its own kind of gift, knowing when to stop giving so somebody else can start. That's the whole shape of it, if you want to understand her theology in one move. She'll clothe you, feed you, and get you to your feet, and then she'll get out of the way and let you walk. There's a line in there about how you're supposed to treat your neighbor, feed them, cover them, put them in their best, love them the way you love yourself. She just does it. She doesn't announce it. She's never once quoted it at me. And she's not a soft person either, which is the part people miss when I describe her. She has never let me off easy. Not on my actions, not on my excuses, not on the version of a story I brought her that had been dry cleaned before it got there. She'd hear me out, and then she'd go, "Okay. Now tell me the real one." Act 5, the thesis. Which brings me to the distinction that took me until this notebook to understand. She and I are honest with each other, always have been. Anything you want to know, you ask, and you get the answer, and the answer is true. But we were never transparent. Those are not the same word. Honest is what I owe you. Transparent is what I owe me. Honest means I won't lie when you ask. Transparent means I don't get to hide from myself in the space between your questions. She'd been honest with me for layers of years. And in August of 2020, she came to collect the other one. Because here's the thing, she said, that I couldn't get around, and I've heard it in different outfits ever since. You can't give advice and stay in victimhood. You want to be different from the people who failed you. Good. Wanting it isn't the work. You have to be honest with yourself and transparent about who you actually are, or you don't get either one. You don't get the peace, and you don't get the peace. Peace. And peace. The part of you that's whole and the quiet that comes after. She said it like one word. I've been separating it out ever since. And then she did the thing that made it stick. She stopped advising me. She started testifying. She told me she'd dated a lot of males, and every one of them was a boy. Grown, employed, articulate boys. She said it flat, no bitterness in it, just inventory. She told me her identity is in Christ. Not she goes to church, not she's spiritual. Her identity, the thing underneath the licenses and the business and the daughters and the whole life she built while nobody was helping her build it. And then she said the hardest sentence anybody has ever said to me. I've never gotten love from anybody besides Jesus. Sit in that. This is the woman who drove me around a town I couldn't afford to live in, who handed me her keys, who has never once let me get away with anything, and has never once left, who's been at every graduation, every game, every airport, every phone call that started with, "I'm not okay." She has poured into everybody, including me, especially me, and she has never gotten it back from a single human being. She says she doesn't deserve anything, and that God has given her everything, and that every bit of the credit goes to Him. I don't have a comeback for that. I've had years to write one. She never rushed her own life, either. Plenty of men have come for her, good ones, serious ones. And she doesn't move. Not out of fear. She just waits. She won't move until she believes she's being moved. And when she does move, it's the whole body. No hesitation, no looking back. She's the picture of the footprints in the sand, the one where a man looks back at his life and sees one set instead of two. Except in my version, she's the one who's been walking the whole time, and I'm the one being carried. And neither of us said anything about it for a very long time. Now here's what I got out of her that I did not deserve and did not ask for. She showed me what a woman actually wants. Not by telling me, by being it. Every standard she held for herself, everything she wouldn't tolerate, every time she made me explain myself. That was a syllabus, and I didn't know I was enrolled. She gave me advice on every woman I ever dated. Every one. Because advice is free. But she had more access to me than 99% of people alive, and I want to be exact about why. Because it wasn't proximity, and it damn sure wasn't clout. It was time. Time nobody asked her to put in. On a man who ghosted her, who lied to her, who was doing things in that season she couldn't have said out loud in a church. She knew what I was. She knew I was going to keep going through women until I learned how to actually treat one. She didn't try to stop it. She just made sure that when it finally ended, there was a man left standing who knew what to do next. Act 6. The Second Bell. Jump forward with me, past 2020, past everything in this season you haven't heard yet. Past the run, past the plane ticket, past the motorcycle, past all of it. New apartment, new life. A woman in it. You know her, Belle. The one who looked at everything ugly in this house and stayed anyway. She was my girlfriend then, and she had these, I'm going to be respectful, she had these knockoff AirPods. Some off-brand, bootleg, gas station adjacent situation, and they were struggling, and she never once complained about them. And I had bought her nothing. On purpose. Because a woman on a phone call in 2020 had told me not to, and for the first time in my life I'd actually been holding the line, not front-loading, not paying the bill before the meal, letting somebody show me who they were before I handed them the top of me. So there I am, watching my girlfriend struggle with fake AirPods, and I finally break. And the reason I broke is not that I felt bad. It's that she had earned it. By then, she'd been doing for me the whole time, quietly, without a scoreboard. So I bought them. And then I did the thing I'd been doing my whole adult life, which is call my best friend before the receipt cooled off. I bought her AirPods. Oh boy. 2 words. And in those 2 words is the whole history. She's already got the file open. She's already thinking, here we go again. He's paying up front. He's doing the thing. So I told her the rest. What Belle had done. How long it had been. What she'd covered. How she moved when nobody was watching. And I listened to my best friend recalculate in real time. And she said, okay, then she's the one. Same object. Same woman on the phone. Same man buying them. In 2020, AirPods were a warning. Now they were a verdict. Because that was always the rule, and I'd been too dumb to hear the second half of it. She never said don't buy her anything. She said, before you buy her AirPods, make sure she takes care of you. Make sure she does for you what a woman does. And if she does, then buy her whatever you want. Then it's not a payment. Then it's a gift. Act 7. The Wall. And then she asked me a question, and to understand why it broke something in me, you have to know what I'd already done. Somewhere after all of it. After the one I don't name, after the woman I moved across the country for, after Ladybug, after Bay. I started saying one thing up front. To every woman I made a plan with. Early, before it could become a fight later. My friend doesn't go. When she calls, I answer. She isn't going anywhere. And if you can't accept that, if you're going to question it, then I don't want you. I never explained it, not once. I'd say it however the conversation called for, but the substance never moved. Because it wasn't a preference, it was a wall. Because I know how this sounds, and I know what women are actually being asked to accept. Nobody wants their man on day dates with a woman. Nobody. That is a real thing to ask somebody to be okay with, and I'm not pretending otherwise. I asked anyway, and every one of them said yes. Here's why I made it a wall. People break up. People get divorced. I've watched it in my own house. You heard about that in December of 2019. Marriages come apart, and the whole architecture goes with them. Friends don't do that. Friends choose you, and she chose me back when there was nothing to choose. And me? I chose the woman, every single time. That's on my record, and you've been listening to it for 7 episodes. Fool me once. So when I met my wife, I told her the same thing I'd told all of them. And she said, deal. Now. Here's what I never told the woman I'd built the wall for. She never once acted like it existed. Every single time she asked, is this okay? Is your girl good with this? Should I check with her? Every time. She'd never once assumed the ground was hers, and she'd say the other part too, that when we got together, she wanted it to be us, not the 3 of us. She wasn't trying to be included, she was trying to be alone with her friend, because you cannot tell the whole truth with a 3rd wheel in the room. Some things only get said with 2 people in the car. And I obliged, because I respected the ask, and because I wanted the exact same thing. 3's company, 2's the truth. Sometimes a bicycle is better than a tricycle. So, my best friend, who has been in my mother's house, who has been in my mother's church, who has been in the room for every failure I've had since I was 19, and who has had a wall built around her for years that she does not know about, asked me one question. 1. Will she be upset about how close we are? That's it. That's the only thing she wanted to know. Not, am I losing my friend? Not, where does this leave me? She wanted to know if her being in my life was going to cost me the thing that was finally going right. And she asked it ready to step back. That was in her voice. She had already decided that if the answer was yes, she'd take herself out of it. Most people are territorial. Most people, when the new person shows up, start marking, reminding you who was here first. She got smaller on purpose, to protect me. Standing in a room I had spent years making sure nobody could remove her from, offering to remove herself. I told her, don't worry about that. You're not going anywhere. You're my friend. And she wasn't. And she isn't. Closer. The Prestige. August of 2020. I was 2 men in one body. One of them read a devotional at night because a woman told him to. The other one drove 300 miles the next day for a stranger and called it a good time. And I want to say clearly, because this show does not do redemption arcs on a schedule, reading that book did not fix me. Not that month, not that year. You've got 5 more episodes of me in this season, and I'm not fixed in a single one of them. You're going to watch me tell a whole run of women the same 3 words. You're going to watch me pick a motorcycle over a ring. The book didn't fix me. It just meant that from August on, there was a witness inside the house. Somebody in there taking notes on the man in the car. somebody who wouldn't let it be nothing anymore. That's all a conscience is. It's not a break, it's a record. And once the record starts, you can keep doing the thing, but you can't keep pretending you don't know. She started the record, and she did it without ever once telling me to stop. That's the part I still can't get over. She had every right. She had all those years of standing. She could have read me my whole file that night, and I'd have deserved every page. She just said, "Read this. I'll check on you." She rode. Now, here's the part I only worked out while I was making this episode, and I need you to stay with me because this is where the floor moved. My mother thanks her. I told you that at the top. 4 times I can name, probably more I wasn't in the room for. And I told you I never understood it. I think I understand it now. My mother thought she lost me. Somewhere in there, and she'd never say when, she looked at her son and did not know how to reach him. Didn't know how to get through. Every road she had was closed. Because that's what happens. You can be the person who made somebody and still hit a stretch where nothing you say lands, because you're the one saying it. It always sounds different coming from a friend than it does coming from your mother. Friends have leeway that parents don't. That's just physics. So here's the theory. Nobody wishes harm on themselves. Nobody plans to get sick. Nobody plans to be gone. But a parent, a real one, wants a contingency. And not somebody who'll check the block and send flowers. Somebody who will actually put in the work. Now look at what that woman has done since the day she met me in a driveway. Exposed me to things, taught me things, made me learn things I didn't want to learn. Provided, corrected, protected, drove, fed, held the line, put a book back in my hands. Never let me get away with a single thing. That is not a friendship. That is the exact life my mother wanted to give me, delivered through a channel I would actually accept it from. And she never replaced anybody, never sat in for anybody, never once tried to be anybody but herself. That matters. She's not a stand-in. But if that theory is true, if my mother saw her son going dark and found the one person on this earth with the character to carry it, and that woman said yes, and then spent all those years doing it without ever telling me that's what was happening, then that is the most selfless thing I have ever seen. And I'm only just now aware I was looking at it. Magicians have a word for the last part of a trick. The pledge is when they show you the ordinary thing. The turn is when they make it disappear. And the prestige is when they bring it back. My mother had a son, and she was losing him. That's the turn. And she spent many years, too many for my fingers and toes to count, quietly saying thank you to the woman standing in the wings, because she already knew how the trick ended. She found me. And my mother found me, through her. That's the greatest prestige I have ever seen. Closer, the dedication. She listens to this show. She doesn't know she's in it. She doesn't know she has a name in here. We have never once talked about it. Not a single conversation, not a text, not a, "Hey, I heard the new one." That's not distance. That's just how she is. She'd never make me explain myself in a room I built specifically so I wouldn't have to. But she's been listening, which means my best friend has learned more true things about me from a podcast than she learned from all those years of asking me directly. Sit with that. I have to. She had to go through levels of people to find me once, and now she's finding me again, through headphones, at the same time as strangers, on a Monday, in a car, in a voice that isn't even mine. That's what it cost to know me. She paid it twice. Last week I told you 2 people came looking for me while this house was quiet. One texted, one called. The one who called is the woman this entire episode has been about. She didn't ask me if I was okay. She didn't ask where I'd been. She asked where the next episode was. Which, if you've been paying attention for the last half hour, is the exact same question she's been asking me since a driveway in the middle of God's great earth in 100 different outfits. Did you read? Where's the next one? Same woman. Say more. So, this one's yours. You've heard 6 episodes of a man you thought you knew. This is the 7th, and it's the only one with a name on the front of it. And you're going to figure out whose about 90 seconds before I finish saying it. You told me my spirit was bad. You stayed anyway. You never told me to stop. You never lent me $1. You never crossed a line. You just kept rowing next to a man who was actively sinking on purpose. And you never once made me say thank you. So I'm saying it here, in the dark, in front of everybody, in a voice that isn't mine, in a story I'm calling fiction. Thank you for steering. I'll keep rowing. And the last thing she said to me on that call, the thing I wrote down and haven't stopped writing down. Grow inside. You know what it is. Surrender. And most of all, level up. Surrender first. That's the order. That's always been the order. I had it backwards for layers of years. I thought you level up and then you get to put it down. No. You put it down and the level comes. I am Atlas. 2 men in one body, and only one of them was ever going to make it. I met a saint in a driveway, and it took me layers of years to hear what she said about my spirit. And even when the lights are on, they're off. Next week on The Unlit House, the 1st. She told me to slow down. I heard her, and then I hit the gas. Because there were 3 words I said to every woman I met that year, and every single one of them believed me. A run, a rule I made up. And the reason a man who'd just been told to get right decided the fastest way out of one woman was all of them.